Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den. When I was 6 years old, um, I have this very distinct memory. Uh, my family were in our 72 VW van, which, by the way, my father still has, original paint job, and it runs. And maybe someday I'll do a video on it. But we're in that vehicle, we're driving down the street, and an advertisement comes over the radio. And I can still remember, I'm going to have to paraphrase it, of course, but I can still basically remember what it said. It said something like, join Luke Skywalker, R2D2, and the gang for Star Wars. Now, this was in 78. I was aware of Star Wars when I was 5, when it was released, because you'd see things about it on television, but I hadn't seen it yet. It was re-released into theaters the next year, and that should tell you something about the popularity of that movie. We've had a few movies that have done fairly well over the last few years. They generally didn't get a release the next year. Star Wars might have even gotten a re-release the year after. It was huge. So that year, 78, my parents took me to see Star Wars at a drive-in theater. I'd like to think seeing Star Wars in a drive-in theater might be the peak 70s experience. I probably was wearing polyester at the time, so there you go. So, of course, having seen the movie and falling in love with it, like any other kid of that period, I wanted to take those celluloid images from the big screen and make them into three-dimensional plastic figures that I could hold in my own little hands. I'm talking about Star Wars figures, maybe the greatest toy, the most important toy of Generation X. Now, I've done a couple videos on this channel showcasing toys that I actually had as a child and that have survived all these many decades since. Very early video I did was on robots in disguise, Transformers and Transformer knockoffs that I owned. I have done G.I. Joe, a real American hero, the mostly Wave 1 figures that I had. And today I'm going to look at my old Star Wars figures and some of the other Star Wars toys that I had that managed to survive. A great many of them didn't survive. They didn't make it, but a few have. And all these were found in a box in my parents' garage that we uncovered while we were clearing out the house because my father was selling it. Now, honestly, I thought that I had some of these toys saved away somewhere. I wasn't sure. I thought, well, maybe I sold them off, in a garage sale or something. So it was kind of a surprise for me to find these. So let's start with some of the ancillary items. The famous Tauntaun from Empire Strikes Back. This was one of my favorite toys. I really loved the way you stick the character through this little trap door, and so it would look like they were riding on the Tauntaun. He got a fair amount of play. It was a really good, it's a really good likeness too. The horns. Love the Tauntaun. And if you're going to have a Tauntaun, you ought to have a Tauntaun killer. Now, I'm going to do something that's probably mildly stupid. Because like I said, this baby sat in a box in a Las Vegas garage for some 35 years. Now, I don't know if you know much about Las Vegas. It gets pretty hot here in the summer. So he's gone through some potentially very broiling temperatures. But I'm going to see if I can actually pull this arm back and make him swing and hope that the rubber inside doesn't give. So here we go. Well, okay, that wasn't too impressive, but frankly, I'm afraid to pull the arm back any further. So we had the Tauntaun. We got the Wampa. I think that was his name, wasn't it? He didn't want to stand up either. What a jerk. Alright, I'm not going to press the issue with him. Now, I didn't have a lot of Star Wars vehicles when I was a kid. Oh, did I want them. But I didn't have them. For all the folks out there right now that are going through some tough economic times and dealing with high inflation, not to minimize what you're going through, but you ain't seen anything until you've seen the late 70s. It was pretty bad. And money was always a little bit tight. Oh, I wanted that Millennium Falcon. Girl across the street had one. I was so jealous. I wanted the X-Wing. I wanted a TIE Fighter. I wanted the Sand Speeder. I didn't get them things. But I did have one vehicle in particular. And this made a guest appearance in the G.I. Joe video. You'll have to watch it to see why. But I did have the Imperial Troop Transport that was not ever actually in a movie. I guess they recently did it in The Mandalorian. You move this and you move the gun around, move forward, backwards. Unfortunately, if you look closely, the gun is damaged. The tip of it is broken off. Still has its stickers though, missing the battery cover. I did put some batteries in it and couldn't get anything to come out of it. And I actually even recall when I was a kid, before this had gotten put away, that that was already getting kind of weak. Those little sound effects, but they were cool. You had the two laser effects, R2D2, C3PO. I remember C3PO was R2D2. Where are you? And the Stormtrooper, I think, there's one set for stun, and oh yeah, then they had like a sound for this. It's probably like the engines or whatever they would have been. They probably duplicated that for the Mandalorian. The back of this opened up. Now there's a switch back there, which I believe is the on-off switch, which I didn't realize when I tested this. So I might have been testing it when it was turned off. And the idea was you could put the figures in these little things here, just sort of hold on to them. Doors open in the front. You can see it's pretty dusty in there still. Doors would open in front. You could put two figures in there. The great thing with all the Star Wars figures is the knees didn't bend. So every vehicle they rode in, you had to have lots of leg space. Lots of leg space. Okay, so there's the preliminaries. The troop transport, the Tauntaun, and the Wampa. Alright, let's get to the real deal. My Star Wars action figure collector's case that I've had since childhood. This is what, probably about damn near 50 years old now when you get to it. So it was kind of fun. I brought this home. The family gathered around the kitchen counter as I opened it and revealed what I still had. Now, I don't have all the figures that I initially had. I know for a fact that I sold a few off in a garage sale. I can remember doing it. Because, there was a point when you're like, I'm kind of done with these and I'd really rather have the money for something else. And unfortunately, as a child, you're not going, in 50 years, these will be worth something. So I don't have all the ones that I owned. But let's see what I do have. And no, they're not all in the best of shape. Come on there. Okay. All right. First batch. Let's start off. We have Luke as the X-Wing pilot. Now, Luke Skywalker figures have a tragic history with me. It started on the birthday when I first got some figures. Let me rearrange this a little bit because that thing sitting on my arm is kind of a pain. And this is a family story that gets told to this day, much to my little sister's chagrin. We open up presents. I think, like I said, it was a birthday. Opening up presents, Luke Skywalker. The Tatooine Luke Skywalker, the white sort of tunic, Luke Skywalker. This is the greatest thing ever. And my little sister, a few years younger than me, gets a hold of it and says, "Does the head come off?" Fun fact, the heads do come off of Star Wars figures. They don't go back on. So before I could ever really play with Luke Skywalker, he was headless. He was headless. My father fixed it by he took a toothpick, and I don't know how he did it, but he kind of got it into the neck of the figure and stuck the head. So I had that weird Frankenstein Luke Skywalker for many years. It did not manage to last to this day. It might have gotten sold. It might have gotten thrown away. I don't know. We have R2-D2. And like so many R2-D2s that were played with by young children, he at some point ended up in a bathtub or something like that. And he lost his stickers. But since I'm not a real stickler about these things, I very recently bought some new ones. From Smith Lord Creations. I haven't put them on yet, but I'm going to, because these are childhood toys. These aren't for sale. These are to pass down. And if my descendants want to sell them, that's okay. They can do that. So I'm going to at some point clean him up, clean the old ones off, and put the new ones on little R2. We got Walrus Man. It's one of my favorites. Now let's see, do I have any others from... Oh yes, okay. A couple more from the first movie. Try to do this. I got a sand person with the cape still intact. Amazing. I remembered he was in there, but I forgot he had the cape. And the good old Stormtrooper. I believe that's it from the original movie. So Empire Strikes Back. We got, was he Rebel Officer, I think. We got the Snow Trooper. I thought the Snow Troopers were awesome. He does not have his little skirt thing. We got the Rebel base dude, who I think is actually maybe Cliff Clavin, maybe not. You know what? He's John Ratzenberger in my heart. I'll just stick with that. We got this droid missing several of his legs, and with this thing off, the head still pops up. We got Lando Calrissian, no cape, and I don't have any of the weapons like for any of these guys. They've all gone who knows where. And trying to rebuy those, good lord. The good old Lando, yeah, I think Lando's really become one of my favorite characters over time because, um, unlike most of the Star Wars actors, you know, like, I shouldn't say most, but like a few of them, Billy D was always cool with Star Wars, man. You never heard Billy D say a bad word about it. Some of the others had sort of a, yeah, it was in Star Wars, which I understand. It did have an impact on careers that wasn't great. So I can't really blame them. We got Han Solo. This, I think, was one of my sister's figures. I'm pretty sure. She also had Chewbacca, who has not made it into the future with me. We got Yoda. Still has his little cloak on. And I would have gotten these the Empire and Return figures a little later on in my childhood, so probably managed to last a little better because of that. And then the King figure from my childhood. The figure that was a status symbol on the playground, and I'm not joking. If you had one of these guys, you'd bring him to school at least once and pray you did not somehow lose him or him get it stolen, because if you had this dude, you were in the club. You were in the elite. Of course, I'm talking Boba Fett. Boba Fett, the big guy. Funny story, when I was opening these with my wife and my daughter watching, my daughter had just been watching like The Mandalorian. It was maybe its first season. And she loved it. She dug it. And so I pull out this Boba Fett figure and she goes, "Can I have it?" Without even thinking. It was not a conscious thought. I looked at her and went, "No." I go, "You can't have my Boba Fett." I go, "You can inherit it, but you're not having my Boba Fett." That's how deep this character, this figure, was entwined with my inner child. That was like 12-year-old me, like some kid on the playground asked if they could have it. Because truth be told, with so many things, if my daughter asked if she could have it, I'd be like, "Yeah, take it. It's fine. Just take care of it. I don't mind." But not Boba Fett. Not Boba Fett. I still think that's funny. It was such a, like, I don't know, not like a Freudian slip, but it was not something I was conscious of. So for Return of the Jedi, I only had a few. I was about 12, going on 13, when Return of the Jedi came out. Very excited about it. I can still remember on my birthday, it was, I don't know if it was opening weekend, but it was still in the theaters. And it might have been opening weekend, though. And we, for my birthday party, had friends over. It wasn't like the kid stuff with balloons and everything. It was like friends came over, I don't know, we did presents, birthday cake, whatever. And then we all packed into, actually probably all packed into the VW van. It was still running back then, like still in regular use. And off to go see Return of the Jedi in the movies. So awesome. That was a good day. And I had, for my birthday, I got that shirt that had the Scout Troopers on it. Maybe my favorite variety of Stormtrooper. I thought these were the absolute coolest. I loved the Snow Troopers when they showed up, but these guys beat them hands down. I remember I had that shirt, though. It had the Snow Speeders on it. It was like bright yellow. And I can still remember wearing that to school at some point. So we got the Scout Trooper, we got Jedi Luke, He's got his cloak still. There he is. I don't think his head ever came off. Alas, no lightsaber. I'm telling you what, man, you look at the prices on those pieces of equipment. You'd almost be better off if you kept the equipment, the guns and all that stuff, than if you kept the figures. And another real favorite of mine were the Imperial Guard. Man, I love the design on these, and I love that red. And it was cool because so much of the Empire was the gray, the black, the white. And here's this splash of color that shows up with the Empire. A lot of good memories with these figures from childhood. As I said, they were ultimately supplanted by G.I. Joe, which, if we're being honest, were superior figures, better articulation, more gizmos to go with them. But nothing will ever take the place, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other Gen X kids, of Star Wars and of Star Wars figures. It was probably the pop cultural touchstone of our generation, without a doubt. And it was such a weird thing that when Return of the Jedi, it came and it went, and it was kind of like, wow, Star Wars is over. I mean, again, I saw it for the first time when I was 6. Return of the Jedi, I think, was when I was like 12. 6 to 12. That's childhood. That's most of my memory of that period. So I was really in that sweet spot. And I don't think anything could ever quite take the place of it. And then, of course, they did like the Ewoks and the droids, but I was getting a little too old for it. I never got into the Extended Universe books, although I do remember reading, what was it, Splinter in the Mind's Eye, when I was in 5th grade. I think that was the first long book I ever read. I was amazed to find it on my teacher's little bookshelf. It's like, that's Darth Vader. And I used to have it. I don't have it anymore. I remember she gave that to me at the end of the year because she liked me. She was a cool teacher. Yeah. But Star Wars. And I can recall, though, that when I got into my early 20s, is when my generation started getting nostalgic for it again. We missed it. I mean, going through, you got your college almost wrapped up, and you're getting real jobs and working. And at that young age, you start to look back at those childhood years and go, wow, man, like, that was pretty great. I didn't completely know it at the time. I think I did a little bit, that it was pretty good, but you don't really totally appreciate, childhood and all those memories. Star Wars was such a big part of that. And I remember they put out this collection series of Star Wars trading cards. I'm talking about like in the, early 90s. And it really kind of tapped into this Star Wars fever that my generation had bubbling under the surface. And that's where we started getting re-releases, and it became a thing again, and it was really fun. And then the prequels were made. Hey, be afraid of what you wish for sometimes. But no offense to all the prequel lovers out there, because I have some younger, like much younger cousins who that was their Star Wars, was the prequels, and it was just as exciting and just as awesome to them as the original trilogy was to me. So I got no qualms about it. And there are probably kids now who fell in love with the sequels. Not my cup of tea. I after the prequels, I stopped going to anything that was like a revival, a remake, a reboot, a reimagining. None of that stuff. No Crystal Skull for me. No second Battlestar Galactica. I decided early on I'm not doing that anymore. make it something new, or forget it. I'm not going. So I never went to the sequels, and I know a lot of people hate them, and probably for good reasons for them. But I know there's also folks out there that love them, and they should love them. It's it's your childhood. Hey, look, the Star Wars movies, they're not Citizen Kane, right? But I love them. Love those figures. And hey, thanks everybody for tuning in, watching me reminisce a little bit about my old toys. If you like the video, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please share with a friend. If you have any memories, Star Wars memories of your own, going to see the movies, your first figures, your favorite vehicles, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to see it. Maybe we can, you and others, we can all chat together about our love of the original trilogy. In the meantime, God bless you. Be kind to one another. And, hey, what can I say? May the force be with you. Always.